You could think of a simple song.
It is wonderful to be here, and Jerome, I'd like to echo that. Knicks won the championship. That's always good to say. Okay, so I have a fantastic, esteemed panel here to talk students and education with, and I hope you all enjoy this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. I'd like to start on a more personal note, Senator. You've spoken about your experience as an intern with the Congressional Black Caucus. How did that moment really shape the way you think about opportunity for young people today?
Well, first of all, to Dirk, and thank you so much for having me today. I want to thank Lisa as well and NAF for inviting me to be with all of you. And you're right, the Congressional Black Caucus, I served as a Congressional Black Caucus intern, and in fact, I'll out myself a bit. It was 1992. For those who are wondering, I am a solidly middle-aged woman because I had that opportunity, but it was a fantastic opportunity for me, and it really did prove two things. One is that I was there, I was a student, I was a junior at Duke University, and had a classmate who served as an intern and said, you know what, you should call, see whether this is an internship you can get with Eleanor Holmes Norton, who was newly elected. And I called, no kidding, every week. It must have been for 3 months. And the people in the office back then, of course, there was no email. It was not that there was no cell phone. So I had to call the phone on the desk. And I called so often that one day I heard them pick the phone up and put it back on the desk and say, oh my God. It's that girl again. She's calling about the internship. And finally, the office manager said, do this. Don't call again. When will you be home for spring break? I told her when it was. She said, come by. I came by for an interview. I was hired. And from there, I was mentored. Donna Brazil happened to be the chief of staff. I also had a number of amazing people in that office who mentored me. The Congresswoman took me under her wing as well, and it proved two things. One is that there is no substitute for hard work and persistence. The calling every week was just the way to get it done. And once I got there, the people who were there had an opportunity, once I had done my part, to make sure that I had every opportunity imaginable. And that's the same framing that I use for young people that I have the opportunity to interface with. Recognizing that our young people are absolutely exceptional in every way. They come to us having done their part, and when they reach us, it is our responsibility to ensure that every single child has an opportunity to get his or her feet on the right path and to work toward their destiny. And so that's what I learned from that opportunity, but it could not have happened without the absolutely exceptional people who were around me as a young person and as an intern.
That's awesome. So, Secretary Cooper and Leon, Maryland's often seen as a leader in workforce alignment and development through the Blueprint for Maryland Future, which prioritizes career pathways, which we all know is so important to young people's success in career. What sparked that collaboration, and what is it meant for schools?
It really was the recognition that education and training is more than just knowledge, which is important. It's about economic development, but overall wellness as well, for individuals, for families, for communities. So making that connection was important, and as important as the blueprint is, our business community conveyed that same perspective, in that we needed to connect not just our education with what's in the book, but education and training with what businesses need. And aligning that is one of the key aspects of the blueprint. 5 prongs, but that's one of the key aspects. It's customer-oriented, if you will. You know, we're educating and training our students. Why? So they can go out and work. And we need to understand what the businesses need in terms of that training and education. And it's not just the businesses of today, it's the businesses of tomorrow. So we have to have that partnership amongst the executive, the legislative, and our business community and academic institutions, all in alignment, all for the same good purpose.
Excellent.
And, and I agree with Secretary Coker. But the world is changing every day. Our kids are inheriting a world that is so different than the world that we inherited, and it means that we have to be ready for them. And much of what we know about our kids is that they're, first of all, as I've mentioned, they are brilliant, and a number of them are not interested in going to college. And it is not because they are not intelligent, it is because their gifts and talents are so varied. And so I recognize that the collaboration that we have between business, between government, and nonprofits, the trades, is especially important to ensure that every child has the opportunity to earn their way into the middle class. For me, prior to being a senator, I was a county executive. And so we invested heavily, in fact, $15 million in career and technical education to ensure that our brilliant children, some of whom are not interested in going to college, and in fact, we know that about 61% of all young people who graduate from high school go on to college. That means that we have another 39% who are not going. And what is it that we do to ensure that we are preparing them for the future and preparing them to meet their destiny? And so $15 million I invested as county executive into career and technical education at Crossland High School to ensure that our young people have the opportunity to be trained and to be met with trades and businesses who can train them in areas where they can go on to earn a living for themselves and for their families.
That's awesome. Leanna, do you have something you want to add? Yes, please.
So what I would add is just that the Maryland Marketing Partnership, what we do is we reach out to businesses to tell the story of Maryland and why they should be a part of Maryland's growing economy. But when we reached out, we realized that everybody knows our story. When you talk about Maryland, you understand diversity, the workforce, the growing initiatives that we have going on, our great leadership from our former county exec and our now senator to our governor. People look at a place that they want to call home, but they say, why should I bring our businesses here? And then they say, you know what? We look at who you're partnering with. Like, for instance, with ION and Q at the University of Maryland, we have Microsoft and different partners come over there. Then when they look at Johns Hopkins and our other universities or Bowie State, they say, you already have the good education, but how can we build a pipeline? Then we said we need to partner with you. We need you to bring some resources to us. What are you looking for in the educational modules that will actually help us grow your company to take it to the next level? So with that partnership, we are not just educating our future for tomorrow, but we're building entrepreneurs that could be a part of that pipeline.
That's awesome, and I think that's a great segue when you say pipeline, right? Because my next question is really asking about how business leaders, how the Maryland Marketing Partnership has worked with business leaders and engaged employers to create that student and talent pipeline. What are some of the things that you've done, and what does that look like for educators and students?
Well, what I would just jump in real quick, one thing that we've done is partner with NAF. Would you think that's a good idea or not?
Yeah.
Cut that up. Definitely is.
And I'm not just saying that because of Dirk's invitation and Lisa, but in the back room when we was fortunate enough to meet some interns, to meet the senator and the Secretary Coker, I actually knew one of the interns, or said she actually went to school with my daughter. And to hear her talk, say, I'm always in the right room at the right places. And she answered the great questions and was able to tell the story. And that confidence that you, the NAF team, that are giving these young students is what's making our generation so prepared for tomorrow. Because if you saw the way those young ladies and men spoke in that back room and talked about policies, initiatives that they would like to see change to make the world a better place, I would say NAF is a great resource, and that's why we're here today, so we could expand it throughout the state of Maryland and just tell your story.
And regarding the partnership between employers and academic institutions, one of our great universities in Maryland, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, at one point, while I was serving at the National Security Agency, NSA, UMBC came to NSA and asked very explicitly, what skill sets do you need? How can we prepare our students to serve their nation at the National Security Agency? And NSA laid that out very clearly, and they worked together on a curriculum. And right now, there is one of the strongest pipelines from any college to the National Security Agency based on that partnership between an academic institution and a partner. Similarly, Howard County Community College, they have a program as well based on employer feedback where the students are working towards a curriculum that's been coordinated with an employer. But the big thing there is those students also get their clearance while they're working at Howard, working through that academic curriculum. Clearances often hold folks back, but if you catch our students young enough and let them know what to do and what not to do, that helps to guide them. So that's another example. And then if I could just foot stomp something that the senator touched on earlier. I grew up in that era where everybody had to have that four-year college degree to live out the American dream. And if you didn't get that four-year degree, you weren't quite where you needed to be. Too often, four-year degrees pretty much have served as essentially proxies for knowledge, and they haven't provided the skills that NAF and other CTE programs do. So we need to continue making that pivot from focusing entirely on degrees and knowledge and have the right mix of skills-based. That's what will get us ahead, skills.
Wonderful. Thank you. So transitioning a little bit to looking ahead, right? Where is the biggest opportunity to scale a model like this in Maryland and other places? And how can partners like NAF really help to expand access to career and connected learning for young people?
It really is working closely with the partnership that we have, the government, private sector, and NAF in this case. Having that collaboration, recognizing that it's an investment and we need to invest. And it's not just money, it's time, it's energy, it's emotion, it's vision. We have to be in alignment and realize that in true partnerships, in this case, again, government, private sector, and NGOs, a true partnership, it's win, win, win. And if we do that, we'll be fine. We need to know the needs and the capabilities and then execute. You can have vision and strategy, but if we don't execute, we won't deliver the outcomes that our folks deserve.
Love that. Thank you. So, I think this one is for the senator. What are some lessons from Maryland that are influencing federal policy conversations right now from your perspective?
So, well, first of all, let me just say Maryland has been a tremendous leader across the country, most especially with our the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which focuses on really emphasizing that teachers are professionals who deserve investment, the investment in our educators, not only to help to continue their training and development, but that we have to pay them what they deserve. This has been huge, and it's something that we in Maryland have really led on. The rest of the country is noticing. In fact, Senator Bernie Sanders introduced a bill called Pay Teachers Act, which again emphasizes the value of teachers and that we should pay them what they deserve as professionals. I guess, and I'm sure everyone in this room can remember that one educator who made the critical difference in their life. You know, I grew up as a person who had two working class parents. Neither of my parents had the opportunity to go to college, but it was so many and they did a phenomenal job in terms of preparing me to learn every day. And then it was my teacher, all of my teachers, who helped to get me to the next level, making sure that they were investing in me as a person and as a student. But that is the reason that we must pay our educators what they deserve, because most of us in this room, I think, can attribute some portion of your success to an educator who was there, ready and willing to be able to get us to the next station in life.
Definitely. And so I think, lastly, for educators, employers, and leaders in other states where we have a really strong representation of other states from across the country here in the room today from our panelists' context, if they want to replicate things like this in their particular jurisdictions or states, What's the most important, single most important action that they can do to deepen those connections between government, business, and the education sector?
I would say the most important action that they can take is they have to engage. So whether it's a small business that may not be a franchise, but you really want them to be successful, you have to shop at it. If it's a school where you're really happy with the education, you have to show up to the meetings. You have to engage and participate. And it goes the same with government. You can't just say that things are not going right with your government and your leaders and your officials. You have to engage. It's not just about voting. You have to organize, you have to reach out, let people know about what's going on, why this person is the right candidate, why this person is not the right candidate. And the more that you realize that you will engage, you start finding people like you that care about what you care about. And then now it becomes like a snowball effect. You're no longer by yourself. A snowflake by itself is not scary, but when it's compounded and it's a snowball, you're ducking and hiding. It's a lot different, you know? But when I'm looking in this room and look at all these leaders and talking about NAF, it's a different conversation than when Mr. Butler says, hey, can you get the Secretary of Commerce and the Senator out here? And I'm like, yeah, but to talk to you, he said, no, it's a big thing. And then he just started showing me all the reels of the stuff that you guys been doing and everything else. And I said, oh, this is exactly it. You're engaged. I understand what you're doing. I see what you're doing, and yes, I want to be a part of it. And now this is how we get to where we are now on the stage.
Yeah, and I want to just add, I couldn't believe it. Leon took the word out of my mouth. I was going to say engaged, and so I'll double down on the word engage and thank NAF for what you have already done. But engaging as well on the federal level is really important. As many of you have seen, the dismantling of the Department of Education. That means that we have not only dismantled the Office of Civil Rights, it means that we have also dismantled funding for things like career and technical education. We're really scaling back so much of what has contributed to the success of our students, and this is really important. We've moved many of those functions from the Department of Education over to the Department of Labor now. Now, I have written letters and fought back against it, but your voices are critically important in this moment to make sure that you are continuing to reach out, and it really does make a difference to hear from you in large numbers, makes a significant difference, and it is important so much so to our kids. I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I have to tell you, as she's in college, but I am so frightened about what our children are inheriting, not only the really disabling debt that they are experiencing, but really this dismantling is going to qualitatively affect the education that they receive and cut off many opportunities for them. And so speaking up is important, writing letters, calling in, come to Capitol Hill, visit, and let us hear from you. Not just the people who represent your state, but go around and make sure that everyone hears from you. NAF has a big voice and has large numbers, and this will be really important to continue to hear from you.
Excellent.
And if I had to choose one, it'll be an umbrella where I can expand. It's alignment of priorities amongst, again, the government's employers and academic institutions. If we are aligned in our priorities, we know how important NAF, CTE is. Why? Because it's an investment in our future. And if none of us care about our future, that's a very challenging conversation. But if we are aligned in our priorities, we apply the scarce resources, and I get it, it's a challenging environment, but that's what priorities are for. Priorities are there so we can work on the most important matters. And I don't know what's more important than our students.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent. Secretary Coker, Leon, and of course, Senator Alsobrooks. Yeah, I love the way Senator Alsobrooks sounds. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so appreciative of your time, your partnership, and your thought partnership as we, as you all laid out, as we begin to continue to usher young people through everything that's happening in the environment right now. You all play a huge part in that, so thank you for everything you do on that front. And again, thank you for your partnership. If we can give them all a huge round of applause.